If you think about your body condition score in relation to the live weight of the ewe, a 1 unit change in body condition score is probably equal to about 8 to 10 kilos of live weight. But even at this stage, if you have 4 weeks left to build body condition score and you can get 4 or 5 kilos extra onto that ewe in a time approaching mating, it'll all be beneficial to her.
Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. We're joined in this episode by Dr. Fiona Mc Govern to discuss the impact of ewe condition at mating on ewe productivity. We discussed the impact the condition has on litter size, its carryover effects on lambing assistance, birth weight and productivity next spring. We finish up the episode with Fiona discussing the importance of getting condition right this autumn to build your body reserves. We start off, however, with Fiona discussing the usefulness of body condition score as a management tool on farms.
I think, to be honest, it's actually quite underrated. It's relatively easy to monitor once you can gauge yourself between, thinner ewes and heavier ewes. It's crucially important, particularly as ewes come into mating and, there's quite a demand on them at this time of year in relation to ovulation and becoming pregnant. They can often be forgotten about a little bit after weaning, but some of our data from Athenry shows the importance of body condition score at this time of the year.
And relatively speaking, as a management tool, it can be quite basic. Like we can literally go from a scenario of fit, thin, fat, as opposed to knowing the difference in half and quarter scores. If we do take it in that context, though, it has an important bearing on how we manage that flock coming into mating. It's going to have a big impact on productivity, Fiona, if not managed correctly.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So, as you said, even if you just learn thin, she's okay or she's over fat, that in itself can tell a lot about your ewes and the condition of your flock. And I think realistically, probably from 3 to 4 weeks after mating, you should try to assess your body condition score at that stage. Maybe pulling out your thinner ewes and preferencing those, and then assessing it again before going to the ram. It just gives you an idea of, if your ewes have put on condition or if they're in a fitter state and ready for mating.
Look, a lot of ewes will be going to the ram in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Window for doing that and condition score is tight. Let's just put that a little bit in context. In terms of condition scores, we score 1 to 5. How much is that condition score worth in terms of body reserves?
Yeah, so if you think about your body condition score in relation to the live weight of the ewe, so a 1 unit change in body condition score is probably equal to about 8 to 10 kilos of live weight. But even at this stage, if you have 4 weeks left to build body condition score and you can get 4 or 5 kilos extra onto that ewe in the time approaching mating, it'll all be beneficial to her. It's never too late, though. That's what I would say. Like, they're better off being on good grass or on a rising plain nutrition and trying to build their body condition score even in the next few weeks, because if you let out your ram today, your ewe mightn't go and lamb for another week or 10 days, and that's giving her some extra time as well.
Yeah, and look, you touch on something that's important. She might actually come and cycle towards the end of that first cycle. She might go and lamb, so you could even have another week or two on that. There's still time to do some of them thinner ones. That half unit could make a difference. And just like we're touching on, we might put that a little bit in context. You've looked at this in a bit more detail in a recent bit of work. Talk to me a little bit about the impact of condition score mating on litter size. Like, we talk about productivity, that's really our good measure of it. How big of a difference is there? And is there a kind of threshold there that we need to cross for condition score?
Yeah, so we just looked at some of the data from the Teagasc flock in Athenry, and I suppose body condition score is something that we routinely measure throughout the year. So we looked at the body condition scores of the ewes pre-mating, and we had about 2,000 to 2,500 records in our data set from data we've collected since the Teagasc flock was established. And what we're seeing is that the pre-mating body condition score actually has quite a significant effect on the scanned litter size of the ewe. So if you have ewes scanning ewes with a pre-mating body condition score of about 3, their average litter size was between 1.4 and 1.5. Whereas if she was scanning with a body condition score of 4, Her litter size was up on 1.7, 1.8. So there's quite a big increase in scanned litter size just based on the mating body condition score of the ewe. And that was happening, interestingly, I suppose, when we looked at it across the parities of the ewes. So regardless of the age or the parity of the animal at mating, the effect was still there. Granted, your, 3 or 4 parity ewes are going to be more fertile than perhaps maybe like hoggets or, 2-year-old ewes that are going to the ram for the first time. But the body condition score impact was there regardless of the age of the ewe.
So for that flock, like a Suffolk and Texas, you usually work with across ages, it's having a positive impact on their size.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it can't be underestimated, to be honest.
Okay, something we probably don't often think about. So that's the kind of direct impact on productivity. When we get the scan results, tells us whether we did well or we didn't. What about the carryover effects? We often talk about the carryover effects of condition score. You've looked at that in a bit more detail. Has it an impact on our productivity next year?
Yeah, so, a worry, I suppose, that farmers always have is, oh, if my ewes are too fat, they won't be able to lamb down, or I'll have lambing difficulty, or that kind of thing. And when we looked at body condition scores, say pre-mating, so you're talking about mid-September, like we start mating the beginning of October, we looked at her lambing difficulty at the following lambing, so March the following year, and there was actually no impact on the mating body condition score. It didn't have any impact on her lambing difficulty. So even the fatter ewes, say the previous September, October, hadn't any issue lambing down versus, your thinner ewes at that point, which I think is good because that can be a concern for people, but you have to remember that you're building up your condition on your ewe now, and that's technically 5 months before she lambs down. So she has quite a bit to get through between now and then. And she's going to prioritize her lamb in the late pregnancy phase anyway.
Okay, so it had no impact on assistance. What about the impact on the progeny? Did it affect lamb birth rates, lamb growth rates?
Yeah, so when we went on to look at the litter birth weight of the ewe, so the average birth weight of the litter that the ewe was carrying, we saw that an increase in body condition score over and above 3 increased litter birth weight by about 2.5% on average. So if you went from a ewe, say, with a body condition score of 3 versus a ewe with a body condition score of 4 at mating, we were seeing an increase of 2.5% in her litter birth weight. So if she was carrying, 2 5-kilo lambs, for example, then they were going to go from weighing 5 kilos at birth to 5.1 or 5.13 kilos. It might seem small, but in the overall scheme of things, in relation to like litter birth weights and lamb birth weights in general, particularly for your twins or triplets, um, every 100-gram difference can mean quite a lot for survivability or for the vigor of the lamb. So then after we looked at the litter birth weight, we also went on to look at the weight of the litter at 40 days of age, or about 6 weeks after lambing. And what we saw was, again, similarly, when the body condition score of the ewe at mating was increased over and above 3, you actually had an increase in the average weight of her lambs at 6 weeks of age. So the lambs were about between 1.8 and 2.5 kilos on average heavier than the litter or like the lambs born to ewes with the body condition score below 3 at mating.
So like, if we just park the figures for a second, we look at the trend, it is telling us something important, that the condition, the reserves we have on ewes at this time of year is having an effect on, litter size, it's having an effect on birth weight, it's having an effect on their ability to milk early on in early lactation next spring.
Yeah, absolutely. So like not only, I suppose, and previous studies across the world have shown that body condition score at mating can influence conception rate and ovulation rate, which we obviously saw in our scanned litter size. But then to follow that on, that those ewes that are in better condition at mating, and ideally, I suppose you want them 3.5 or more, are going to give birth to heavier lambs and have lambs that are growing faster, particularly in that first 6 weeks of life, when you want to maximize the growth rate of your lamb because it's the cheapest and easiest time you'll get a lamb to grow throughout their whole life is probably within the first 6 to 8 weeks.
So we just bring that right back to where we are at the moment. I think you touched on this a number of times. We know our target, our condition score is 3.5. That threshold of 3 seems to be important in terms of productivity. If we talk about gain, putting gain on ewes or weight on ewes, it's easier and cheaper to do it at the moment than later on in pregnancy. And certainly it's easier from what you said to have it on or now than to be chasing for that condition score or putting in a supplement next spring.
Yeah, so if you have thinner ewes, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to pull them out if you haven't done so already. Give them priority grass. We have had ideal grass growing conditions, even though the weather hasn't been great. And in the autumn, it will hold its quality. So make sure those ewes get preference and give them the best chance they can over the next few weeks before they go to the ram.
Fiona, it was good getting you on for that update. Certainly an interesting study, something I'm sure you're going to look in a bit more detail as well, but it was good getting that update from me today.
No problem. Thanks very much, Kieran, and do come back to us to hear some more about it.
We'll leave it there for this week's episode. A timely update from Fiona, again highlighting the impact the condition can have on productivity and the fact that we can still actually try to improve condition, particularly in those thinner ewes in the flock that tend to pull down our performance from now to mating. That's it for me. For any updates on the sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more episodes.